Oh, I should put the volume down, shouldn't I?
That's just my light radiating behind us. Hello, everybody. Hello.
Just switching the music off there. Good morning,
Jeff,
good afternoon, good evening.
Whatever it is, wherever you're at.
Wherever you
Good morning,
are.
good evening, good afternoon.
This is...
Hey, Marlene.
Hey, Jeff.
No, I'm Randy. That's Marlene. That's
Yeah.
Jeff. That's Dipika.
Hey. Hi, guys. Thank you for joining us. Happy Wednesday. As you say, hump day, right?
Hump day.
Hump day.
The middle of the week. Everybody's week good so far? Should be. It's been a beautiful week. It's not hot outside. It's a figment of your imagination if you live in the desert.
He's only saying that because he's going to Maui in like 2 days.
Yeah, see there, you said it. I didn't.
Well, he's thinking that in the back of his head, but
you said it. I didn't.
I'm just saying some truth. That's all.
I will be on Maui on the beach.
Yeah. Just not
so
in this
you know.
heat, just in case
you
want to.
Like I said, I might not come home.
Yeah.
You might be getting a postcard with a PO box or a zip code and a pine and a coconut tree.
I'm totally okay with that.
Hi Tracy, how are you?
Hi, hi Tracy.
Yeah, we're crazy. The life's about having fun because we all, far too often we take it way too serious.
Mm-hmm.
I know I can.
But as that's why we're easing into it. We're not taking it so seriously. We're going to be talking about a serious conversation today.
Very serious conversation today.
But before we do, I just want to say thank you for joining us. Remember, so Randy and Dipika, we're here as Love Your Life Story. And today's conversation is going to be some real talk about suicide, depression, and other traumas. There's a lot going on in our media.
I'm sure.
And we just wanted to connect and talk and just really have some discussion. So any questions, we welcome them, we love them, and any thoughts, any feelings, this is a safe space for you to share, and we all have our own views, our own opinions. I think I would like to request anyone that has any opinions, just be mindful of how you're putting it down on paper, or on your keyboard. This is a very sensitive topic. Not that I'm saying that you can't say your truth. If you have to say your truth, please do. This is the place to say your truth. And, we set the space for that, and we're not going to alienate you for saying something that you wanted to say. So with that being said, keeping it lighthearted. And this is no judgment. This is this is a place, however it might be for you. If you're going to share anything, this is you will be validated. We will be rigorously honest with you, and
hey, Linda.
We're here to just give you some thoughts, I guess. What else?
Some thoughts. And what we want to say also, especially on this series, is that Dipika and I realize neither one of us are licensed psychiatrists or psychologists. Okay, we both have education. We both have many years experience working in the field of healing, in the field of addiction, in the field of sociology. We've worked with a lot of different people with a lot of different symptoms. And so when we talk today, we're coming from a place of our knowledge, our experience, and our wisdom. It's not like anything, it's not set in gold. It's just what we've experienced and what we know to be our truth. And so that's what we're going to try and share with you today, because there's a lot of misconceptions out there about depression and suicide and traumatic events and stuff like that. So we just want to touch on that. And I think most importantly, like we always will at the end, we want to talk about solutions, because I often see my view that I see is a lot of people talk about the problems, but there's really no solution with a lot of these problems. And that's we're here we want to make sure people have solutions, at least an option of a solution for whatever problem they might be facing.
To talk about it, there isn't one solution that fixes everything. There's a lot of options out there. There's a lot of ways to do something, but ultimately everything's an integration. There's not just one solution. and it's making sure that I think we're being consistent in even the solutions or the options that are available to us is something that's done as a lifestyle, as we develop, as we grow, as we create self-awareness, as we create awareness around us, the inside out job, I guess, we could say it as, but I appreciate you saying that, Randy. Where do we start? I appreciate everybody who's joined so far. If you have any questions through the way, please do feel free to ask us questions.
A lot of things we see on Facebook is depression is not an illness. It's just, get the bad thoughts out of your mind. Think this way, think that way. Just get up and go to work and get over it. Wish it away, pray it away. You hear all these things out there about what depression or what we should do if we're depressed. And the reality is that my reality is this, and the people that I work with, is that clinical depression is real. It's real, and it's alive, and it's very devastating. You can't wish it away, and you can't pray it away. It's a place of darkness that I don't wish anybody to go to. I fortunately was married, and I still am married, and I had children, and so the only reason I would get out of bed in the morning is because I knew I had to support my family. But I didn't want to be there. Okay, so first of all, depression is real and alive. It's not just a figment of our imagination. I'll talk towards the end of the depression part about we got to learn one thing as we get in our healing process, as I have, and that's to look at, am I depressed or am I sad? And I'll talk a little bit more about that a little bit later. But there's a lot of factors to depression. It's been around for years. With all the research we available to us now, all the peer focused journals and peer reviewed journals and the medical journals, and the amount of research that's available, they're really learning a lot about the brain. And it's very complicated. As a matter of fact, it's extremely complicated. And there's a lot of factors that go into depression. If you were abused in any way as a child, that's one way that you'll become depressed. Or what happens is there's a biochemistry factor that happens to that. And at the time you're abused, there's something that happens biochemically to your brain chemicals, and it'll throw you into a state of depression, so to speak.
Or could it be? I mean, it could be also any form of trauma.
Any form of trauma,
not just abuse.
No, in trauma, when we look at trauma, we're looking at acts of war. There's any kind of abuse. There's also they're watching your dog get hit. Yeah. But what were you saying earlier about?
Or even like maybe your parents just lost their business, or they're struggling, and that's a traumatic experience for watching your loved ones struggle, and you don't know how to deal with it because you don't know what to do, and you want to ultimately help to fix things. So here you are, you creating yourself in a whole new way, and only way that you know how to be is to, whether it's compliance issues or whatever, however you would say it. But the ultimate reason I'm bringing that up is that there is a chemical change in the brain, and that's been, as studies have found, that's been more and more. It's coming into the limelight of understanding. Okay, why is the brain doing what it's doing? And then also like the healing process after it. Because yes, so the brain has had, and I guess in that sense, if you look at it on a health and wellness basis, I mean, that's why when the brain chemistry changes, like for an individual, if they're trying to be healthy and they can't eat good and they can't, but the brain chemistry is like completely off. And if your brain chemistry is off, your hormone chemistry is off.
Yeah, everything's
off because your main gland that creates what it needs to create isn't developing and creating what it needs to do for you to function.
But think about this. This is real simple, especially for a lot of people that struggle with low grade depression and they're coming out of recovery or whatever. When you exercise, one of the best ways to help you through a lot of rough times later on in treatment is exercise, because exercise releases the feel good endorphins in you. And those of us that do it, we know that feeling. It makes us feel good. It releases the good neurotransmitters in our body. If we just sit around and do nothing, and all we're doing is focusing on our past, then naturally we're going to be thinking dark thoughts all the time, because trauma creates a lot of dark thoughts. So there's a lot of different ways, a lot of different theories that we can help ourselves when it comes to depression.
Pain too.
Yeah.
I mean, that the dark thoughts would manifest into pain, into physical pain.
Physical pain, absolutely.
Emotional pain, spiritual pain. I mean, right. There's that disconnect to the realms of everything that makes you whole. So, whether it's your belief system, whether it's your physical body, and I think if you're looking at how we do things, whether we numb ourselves out, it's just the further away we become to even, acknowledging it. The more we numb ourselves out, the further we become to even acknowledging what the problem is, or coming to understanding. Whether we cover it up by our so-called families, or in our religion or practice, or even anything extreme. Like we touched on base. An addiction is anything to an extreme. Anything that you do to a point of an extreme, and it can be anything. You think something is good for you, but then all of a sudden, that as a side effect, everything has a consequence. But I think in terms of how we're talking about the brain chemistry, so the brain chemistry is what causes the addiction, right, or the pattern,
right? It's
or the understanding,
right? And then we got the other part of too, is the genetics.
Yes, but in the genetics, there's now there's other research that genetics not the only thing that's. It's a part of it.
It's a part of it.
Yes.
So it's like depression is not as simple as get out of bed, pray it away. If it was, then this world would be healed and there would be no sickness. And I'm a Christian, and I pray a lot, and I believe in God. And
well, as Elizabeth just said on here, she said, I fought depression and suicidal thoughts through turning to God. I mean, and I think, for everybody, it's different. And I'm really glad to hear that worked for you,
Absolutely.
And then we're also growing, because it's not just a handover, because we still have a hand in what we do and how we do life.
Right.
And I think that's the responsibility that we have to individually take, but then also as a collective, what's going on in our society with people. I mean, fortunately, unfortunately, it's a circumstance here is, over the past week, we've had a couple of suicides. And, the well-to-do people, they've been successful in their world. And I want to say also successful according to whose eyes. And if that's something that we can really look at, unfortunately, there's a loss. But at the same time, fortunately, here's something that's been lost that's big in society, because they have that community or following that has come to the limelight, and it's brought to our attention that, we cannot continue to live like this. And if we continue and choose to live like this, this is becoming more and more. I mean, what was the number that we were talking about in terms of in just America? The 10th leading cause of death in U.S. is suicide.
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
The 10th leading cause to death in the U.S. is suicide. I mean, that's saying something. So why does it take one, celebrity? Now everybody's on it, and we as a community, this doesn't need to just happen in celebrities or people who we recognize in, the world or the industries, but even in our, real life. This is real life. What's happening in real life, amongst our loved ones. Has any of you who are watching us, have you ever experienced anyone? I know my sister-in-law's brother committed suicide, so that was something that was close to our family home. And I've had my experience. I've never tried it. I've been to chicken shit. Can I say that?
You said it.
I said it. It's too late. I've been too chicken. I mean, I had thoughts, in my childhood days, where I went through the struggles and the pains of life, and I know I had thoughts, but I was too chicken shit because I was like, oh, okay, well, if I did it, what were the consequences? What about if I didn't die? That was my.
Well, I'll talk about that in a minute.
Yeah,
I got somebody that didn't die.
Yeah, yeah, and
let's go back to depression though for a minute, though.
Yes.
A couple other things with depression is personality and environmental factors. So, people with low self-esteem and they're overall pessimistic a lot, they tend to suffer with depression a lot as well. And the environmental factors, which is continuous exposures to violence, neglect, abuse, or poverty. Okay, so if you're growing up and you're constantly exposed, they actually say if you're exposed to violence in a home, it's worse than being abused yourself. And so all those factors contribute to depression because the low self-esteem comes from living in a neglectful household. Is one way it comes, not the only way. I'm worthless. I'm not worthy of nothing. I'm worthless. My parents always fight, and it's my fault, even though it's not our fault. There's no evidence that it is our fault. And, how come I'm living out on the street? And some kids, they adapt to it well, and some kids don't. But that low self-esteem comes into play. And then when they start making mistakes in life, see, I'm worthless. I'm no good. And it's an ever tumbling circle. It just goes spiral that goes down. And many times, if we don't get help early on with the psychological factor of all this, it ends up in a bad depression. For me with the depression, I didn't realize I was depressed until I came home one night. And I got done with a big bike ride, as a matter of fact. I rode my bike, it was 1988. And I'm in the shower and I broke down sobbing and crying. I'm on my knees in a place of darkness. I didn't know what was wrong with me. I had no idea what was wrong. I couldn't figure it out. It just hit me overnight. It could have been a cumulative amount of drugs and alcohol that might have incited it, but and then I found out the next day they actually wanted to lock me away for like 30 days in some psychiatric ward. I said, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. I'll figure this out some other way, and which I did. So, our childhood, believe it or not, plays a big role in we become depressed. And our genetics, like Dipika said, it's not just genetics. There's not just one factor. There's not an easy thing that says, you're depressed because of this. And again, we're not doctors. We're not psychiatrists. We're just coming off of our general knowledge and what we've been doing for the last 10 years and the last 20 years. That's where we're coming from. Okay, as a place of knowledge, working with hundreds of different people with hundreds of different situations. Okay, so when people are depressed, here's what our job is as a society. One of the things that happens in society is we call them the man rules of society, but they're also the women rules. Mm-hmm. Is suck it up, be a man or be a woman, figure it out, don't cry, get over it, move on with yourself. All those things that are said to us from, when we're knee high.
You should know better than this.
You should know better than this. Look at the life you got. You live a beautiful life. You have no right to be depressed. Those words are damaging. Those words, you never know, could send that person over the edge and pulling the trigger, because there it is. Once again, I'm told I'm worthless and that I have no right to feel the way I feel, so I might as well just put a gun to my head and end it. It happens that quick, and it can happen with the most well-intentioned words can do the most damage to a person. I say can, not will, can. So we have to be real careful with our words and the way we choose to speak to people, because we never know what a person's going through on that particular day.
And how you can trigger them. And I think even that, I think that's it is a complicated thing. Remember the discussion that we had about, what words mean to us, because what the word might mean to you might mean something completely different to somebody else. And you would be like, well, it doesn't make sense to me. That doesn't even trigger me. That, it doesn't have to be in a bad word. It doesn't even have to be a negative word.
No.
In the word, whether it's something, oh, you shouldn't be doing that.
Right.
It doesn't even have to be that. But I think, I think that's where, it's complicated. I don't think there is even in that. Then you're like, okay, well, what do I say to somebody, or how do I behave, or how do I act, or how can I be? I think it's like it's like another one of my clients that she's not a touchy-feely type of person. She goes through ins and outs of depression. She goes and sees a therapist, does the thing. But the other part of it, so sometimes she will be in a really good space and she will come up to you and she'll hug you. But the other times when she's in her space, she doesn't want anyone to come in her space. So how do you then interact? How do you, I'm saying as a general question so that people can understand, because like for someone who think, in her mother's case, for example, she doesn't know how to show her the love or the affection because it's not been something, I've created this relationship with my mom and dad where now I just hug them, right? It doesn't matter. I'm like all over them, right. But I built that relationship. Right. Now in their case, however, they've been very caring, very nurturing to one another, but somewhere along the line, something's gone missing. And what I noticed is that the daughter didn't feel as loved or appreciated. And the mother would be saying, I appreciate you, thank you so much, but she wouldn't hear it, right? And then she would go into her process of whether it would be feeling down or how that would be for her. And it would be like a wall. So the mother's wall would go up, the daughter's wall would go up, and that breakdown of how can they support one another. And it takes a new dialogue to have that. Because even though the mother's saying, thank you so much, I really appreciate it. She's not touchy-feely, right, but she's not hearing it. Right. So
she's listening but not hearing.
Yeah, and she's not taking it in.
Right.
And what does that take? And then on the other hand, when you'd ask her the question, the daughter, she'd be like, oh no, it's okay. This is really stressful at the moment. Life's just really stressful at the moment. But she's not acknowledging something because it's something deeper than that.
Well, why is she not acknowledging it? Because mom never heard it in the first place.
Yeah, right.
Leo said, can you talk about functional persons that depressed and a non-functional isolated person that's depressed and how we can raise our awareness for these guys? Okay, so first of all, let me give you, Leo, on that. It's a great question.
Thank you. I just want to acknowledge another couple of two questions that will actually just, Elizabeth was just saying how her family members, she had a couple of family members and she knows of 3 in her life. Thank you for sharing. It's just, I asked that question just to show that it is in our lives and we don't talk about it and we don't go around saying, oh, well, yeah, I know, but, I'm sorry that you had to experience that and your loved ones had to experience that. But sharing, we're not alone, Yeah, Tracy, thank you for your message. People do need help and they do need therapy. And some people do need medication. To help change the brain chemistry. Absolutely.
And regardless, I'm how I am. I'm a firm believer that prayer is an absolute must. I mean, it wasn't until when I got sober and after 38 years, for me, I got on my hands and knees one day and said, God, I can't do this by myself. I need you to help me. I don't want to drink no more. And what was lifted from me at that moment was the cravings. At that precise moment, I had no more cravings to drink or use. It was gone like that. So I'll tell you what wasn't gone. 38 years of pain. That's where I had the courage and the strength and wisdom that my prayers every day gave me to continue working through all this, to realize that, hey, this is deeper than I think it is, and that my feelings of worthlessness aren't true. But it took me, when you feel you're worthless for 38 years, it doesn't go away overnight. That's ingrained in our brain. It's just in the amygdala. It's a cycle that goes around and around and around, and we just keep on telling ourselves that. So prayer, meditation, all that I think is essential. Whether you're Buddhist, Hindu, Christian, Catholic, whatever you are, prayer and meditation is an absolute must. I believe.
Yeah. Prayer, meditation, and movement.
And movement.
Body movement. That brings us back into our body.
Right.
That makes us self-aware of how our body is functioning and doing, and also being aware of where the mind chatter is.
So,
but in the question to Leo, because we were talking about, just talking about isolation.
So let me do this real quick. I'm going to give you some signs of depression as this is from the American Psychiatric Association. Okay, I'm going to rattle these off really quick, and then I'll answer your question, Leo. Feeling sad or having a depressed mood, loss of interest or pleasure in activities once enjoyed, changes in appetite, weight loss or gain unrelated to dieting, trouble sleeping or sleeping too much, loss of energy or increased fatigue, increased or purposeless physical activity, e.g. handwriting, hand wringing or pacing or slow movements and speech, actions observable by others, feeling worthless or guilty, difficulty thinking, concentrating or making decisions, thoughts of death or suicide. Symptoms must last at least 2 weeks for a diagnosis of depression. So with all those symptoms, now you got an idea what it is. I always have been a functioning alcoholic, a man with depression. I was a functioning man with depression. And I continued. It was really hard, but every morning I would get up and I would go to work, and I would interact with my family to some degree, because I love my family, and I just knew what I was going through. My grandmother was the only one. She told me, Randy, nobody will ever know what it's like to be clinically depressed unless they've walked in your shoes. And she had walked in my shoes. So she was there to help me through the process. So as in everything I did, I've been functioning. Sorry for the phone call.
Sorry.
It's God calling. There he goes.
I'm sorry.
Oh, no worries. I was up functioning depressing. I went to work. My actions weren't always the greatest, towards the end. And then they put me on. There was a night. I'll talk about this night in a minute. But that's kind of a functioning. We go to work. We seem like we got it all together. We might be a little bit down or whatever, but we're out there doing what we're supposed to do to the best of our ability. Versus a person in isolation, they're living in a black hole. And why is it different for them than it was for a guy like me? Well, maybe all their life nobody ever believed them. And maybe they learned to isolate. That was their way of getting through life, is they go out to work or they go to school and they come home and they isolate in the room, listening to whatever in the music they want to listen to, but they're in their own little world. And so there's no interaction between people, so they're not getting fed any kind of positive energy whatsoever. And whatever energy might be coming at them might be perceived as, even though it might be positive, might be perceived as a negative energy. Okay, which is easy for them to do, because as a traumatic survivor of trauma, I thought everybody was out against me. It didn't matter how good I was. It didn't matter how many people gave me a pat on the back, said, Randy, you're doing great. Everything's wonderful. I thought, you're lying to me. You just want something from me.
Something.
Yeah. So it's there are two different personality types, I believe, and I'm not the psychiatrist on this one, but what I see, Leo, in answering that, I was very high functioning as a human being, period. It's just who I was. And so I was able to work during that time, versus a person that is isolating. There's a guy right now I can think of that he was pissed off at the world and didn't trust anybody. And he did isolate. And he was on several different meds. And he kept on coming to these meetings I was involved with for about a year or two, and he slowly started coming out of it. But he hated the world. He wanted to kill himself. His only goal every day was he wanted to kill himself. And it was dark when he would talk. It's like, dude, come on, you got so much to live for. But we kept accepting him where he was at and feeding him positive stuff, and eventually it started turning around.
It takes time. I think I isolate. Yeah. I know for myself, my own personal experience. I was a functioning depressive, and at the same time, I know one stage in my life after I was functioning, but in that so-called functioning, I did turn to alcohol and drugs, and then. As I came off that stuff and I was doing my thing and I was functioning, but the depression was still there. Right. And it was always, and then it was when my parents got divorced, when they were going their separate ways, that's when it totally tumbled down. That's when I was done. I remember it being 6 months. I was completely, I did not want to talk to anybody. I did not want to defend myself, give anybody a story, did not want to talk to anyone to tell them what I'm feeling, what I'm not feeling. I just wanted to eat a little bit, take my medication, and take care of what I had to take care of, like had to, nothing. I wouldn't do anything extra, and I'd go to bed. I'd sleep my way through it. I slept my way through it until it came, and I think it's time. I think it's time. In terms of that self-healing, I did some work myself, but at that time, and I think this is the conversation, are people not getting the support? Are people not getting the opportunities to talk about things? I think for myself, just like Elizabeth was saying, Elizabeth, you have your relationship with your higher power, which is really powerful, but I think that takes some building too, and that takes time to build too. It's just because we all kind of go, okay, and some people, like my mom, she's like a huge religious believer, but where she's at right now in her space, she's still, even if I was to talk to her, it would be God is everything. But in reality, the way she would behave towards herself, God isn't there.
God isn't there.
Right? It isn't there. So like even with myself, I think when I was going through the stage, I think it was my internal conversation with my higher self, and that at least led me to come out of it and realize what was there, what was the doctors. So during that time, I went to a doctor, and the doctor was just like, "Oh, there's nothing wrong with you. If you can't handle the stresses, then leave your job, do what you need to do, and right now you're not capable of handling life." And I was like, I swear I left that doctor's office that day, and I was just like, I don't get why he said that. I was offended. I mean, I'm already feeling really bad, and I left the doctor's office, and I was so offended, like, what's wrong with me, kind of thing. So I think that's the conversation that we were having earlier about how, whether it's how people have been diagnosed, or how they've been diagnosed through their general practitioner, or is that even it's not even a diagnosis, right? Because there's only certain people that can diagnose you. But then even after that, I think is the conversation beyond that of how can with all these factors that come into it, because it could be anything that triggers somebody, but how can they come out of it through loving themselves? Because in this scenario that you were saying, it wasn't, my biggest thing was I didn't love myself. Right. That was my biggest, and then everything else out of me kept on having these experiences. I kept on having these turbulent experiences throughout my life, throughout my childhood, my teenage years, my my 20s, even to my late 20s, and it's only in my late 20s and doing the work that I've been doing and being really able to see and observe it in a different way and have a conversation in a different way that has changed that. Right. So it's about having the conversation. What does it take, and how does it take, for people to, like Anthony Bourdain, or we were talking about Mrs. Doubtfire, what's his name? Robin Williams,
Let's I want to talk about meds.
Absolutely.
Because you hit on something, we talked about it, how I feel strong about
this. Please do.
Let me ask you a question. If you need an oil change in your car, are you going to go to a seamstress, or are you going to go to a mechanic? Okay? I love GPs, and this is no disrespect to GPs and medical doctors, but they're GPs, they're not psychiatrists. Psychiatry and psychology are two very highly specific medical issues that need to be addressed by the professionals. If you're dealing with a psychiatric problem, you want to go talk to somebody that knows the brain, which is a psychiatrist, not your general practitioner. The general practitioner, in my eyes, should have the wherewithal and the confidence to say, you know what, I believe this is what you're suffering. I'm going to refer you out to a psychiatrist. Because the thing with meds is that meds don't just like that take over. Okay, when you're dealing with a psychiatrist will sit down, they'll give you a proper diagnosis, which only they know how to do, okay, on what's going on with your brain and what's going on with you. At that point, they'll determine a course of action for your medical treatment. Now, I will say this about psychotropic meds. There is no magic cocktail for one person, and it bites. It's terrible. It sucks. I don't like it, okay? But You have to go through it. And when they find the right cocktail for you, your life will change drastically. It'll be like, am I really supposed to feel this good? Okay, it's almost unnatural, but the reality is, yes, that's how you're supposed to feel. It's not fun. And during the course of the 12 years I've been in, I've had to change meds a couple of times, and it hasn't been fun. And then what it come down to, what it come down to is this: is that I have a wonderful psychiatrist, and they are hard to find. If you're dealing with addiction, you need to find a psychiatrist that specializes in addiction. Okay, and there's only one of them out here that I know of, and it's Dr. Bassinelli, and that's who I go to. Dr. Anthony Bassinelli is phenomenal. There's another treatment called transcranial magnetic stimulation, TMS. And it's not electronic like the ECT where they go in and shock your brain and they do all sorts of damage. It's magnetic stimulation. And about 3 years ago, with the meds I was on, I just had a low-grade depression and low-grade anxiety a lot of times. And so I went in with this treatment. It was a 30-day treatment, once a day. It takes a half hour. And it's literally magnetic impulses. And after the first week, I could sleep better. I got my energy back. And by the end of the 30 days, my depression and anxiety were pretty much 99% wiped out. They were gone. Now, do I still, because bipolar is one of my diagnoses, and I still will wake up one morning and go, what happened last night? God's sake, I just went to bed and I had a wonderful time yesterday, and I wake up going, I'm down. That's not who I am, but that's what happens on occasion. The difference is I can get out of it usually within a day or two because I know the tools to use. Okay? 1988, we'll talk about suicide now. Okay, in 1988, I started my journey in the recovery, and my wife and I were at a picnic all day. At this time, I was struggling with custody issues with my son from my first marriage, Danny. We were going back and forth, and it was a battle. I was at a picnic all day, and my wife's best friend, during the course of the day, asked me how Danny, my son, was. And I says, I really don't want to talk about this right now. And maybe I said it harsher than that. Quite frankly, I can't remember. I don't think I said it that bad. Well, that day when we got home, we're upstairs in the bedroom, and my wife, Kathy, as loving as she is, she goes, Randy, I think you're pushing our friends away from us. And I asked her why. And she said a few things, and I can tell you this. Why do people commit suicide? Why? Do you really know the answer to that? Will we ever really know the answer to that? Because they're dead, so we won't know. But I can tell you for myself what would have happened that day if there was a gun in my house. Without hesitation, without thought, I went boom, just like that, I'd be dead. Instant, gone. It's a simultaneous thing. It happens instantly without thought. You get to a point, it's just like you don't even think about it. The next morning, I called my therapist. I was in his office as soon as he opened. And that's when I started my journey in psychotropic meds. Okay? And they saved my life. I'm grateful that I'm off of all but one today. 12 years I've been on my journey. 12 years of working on all my lifetime issues. My deepest, darkest secrets are gone. They're up, they're rooted. I don't have them anymore. 12 years I've been working on them. I've gone through hell and back. Just in the last 12 years, I've gone through hell and back, losing businesses, making a lot of life changes. And I thank God for the meds that I was on while I had them. And I thank God that I don't have to take them all anymore today. I've tried to get off of them, and I can't. And it comes down to this, for a lot of people, quality of life. And I'm not going to walk around agitated when I know I can take a psychotropic med and it'll take care of me and take care of that agitation. Do I pray every day? Yeah, I still pray every day. I do all that. But God hasn't done that miracle in my life yet, and maybe he will. I'm not saying he won't. I'm not saying he will. We always say, when we say our prayers, thy will be done, not mine. And I have mustard seed faith. I do have mustard seed faith. That's all we need. So psychotropic meds, when they're used properly, are really good. Now, here's the downfall. In AA, this happens a lot. You're not sober because you're taking a psychotropic med. Oh, really? You didn't just say that. So these guys go off the meds because their sponsor or somebody that's an old timer says, you're not sober, you're taking a psychotropic med. Or they get to the point where they're feeling good and they don't They don't know how to deal with how good they feel, so they start taking their psychotropic meds, and they relapse. Or worse yet, they kill themselves. Mm-hmm. Okay? I'm not saying that everybody's this way. Remember that. Dipika and I are not talking about everybody. We're talking in general right now. A lot of people out there do well without meds. Some people need the meds. It's just all on the individual person. Christian, Hindu, Buddhist, Catholic, whoever you are. It's the individual person. Whatever those beliefs are, whatever they believe, they're going to do what they have to do to save themselves if they choose to do that. Mm-hmm. So when we look at Chester Bennington, last year on my ride, he committed suicide. Right. We look at Robin Williams, we look at Katie Spade, and we look at Anthony Bourdain. They've made it to the top, every single one of them. And on the outside looking in, they looked wonderful, didn't they? They had it all together, the life was great, but nobody knows what's going on behind the closed doors. I was explaining to Dipika about Robin Williams. This is just my theory. You guys might have saw it when I posted it on Facebook. Robin Williams, he had a father that was an executive in the Ford Motor Company. His mother was very successful in the entertainment business. Robin Williams was bullied as a child. That's trauma right there. And because of the bullying, what he had done is he learned how to use humor to make friends. Thus, Mork, Adrian Cronauer, Mrs. Doubtfire, Garth, all of them characters he created in his head to protect himself. Okay, if you watch interviews with his mom, and I did research before I wrote this piece, that almost every conversation with his mother, it was laughter, it was comical. There was never no serious conversations. Robin Williams never knew how to be serious, in my opinion, from what I saw, from what I read. So here he is at the end of his career. And he's got all these different characters out there. All of them. Great characters. But he's at the end of his career, so who's he left with? He's left with Robin Williams. And who is Robin Williams? Does he even know? Does he even know who his self really is? And my understanding that behind the scenes, and I'm not, this is just perspective. I love Robin Williams, and I feel so sorry for his family and his kids and everything else. Suicide is not a fun thing to even talk about or to have happen, but it's real, and there's a reason it happens. But behind the doors of his house, it was pretty dark from what I read. He had no other option, he thought. So it doesn't matter who you are, depression, mental illness, and suicide, they don't care. They're not prejudiced. They're going to get you one way or the other, it seems like. And it's sad. Anthony Bourdain, Kate Spade, all of them. And so why is it, Dipika? Everybody all of a sudden wants to talk about suicide, depression, just like when sexual abuse comes up. Everybody wants to jump on the bandwagon about sexual abuse.
And then he dies of death a little bit, and then people go, oh, now they're talking about. I mean, like that Me Too thing that went about, and so the Me Too. It came out and everybody's on it, and then after a few months it died down. Then people are still sending the Me Too thing around, and people are going, oh, why are you thinking on the negative? And
right.
It's like, well, no, that's not what the reason or the point of Me Too is. Me Too is saying that I too have gone experience through it, and we can work through this together. You're not on your own. That's the ultimate conversation here, that these people, whether they're successful in their world or their trade or whatever that might be, if they're part of Me Too, or if they're part of something that puts them in a position where whether they're taking their life, or before taking their life they're in depression, or they're high anxiety, or whatever that mental health issue is coming up, I think the conversation is to have the conversation. So how can we create and generate the conversation? You're asking the why.
So how do you generate the conversation? It depends on what the subject is. But let's say suicide. Mm-hmm. All right. You notice all of these people probably had somebody really close to them that knew something was going on. I would guess. I'm not certain. Okay, I'm just saying probably. And they probably blew it off. Well, it's just Rob, and he'll get over it. When you talk about suicide, if you got a friend that is talking about suicide, you need to say, well, wait a minute. are you joking or are you serious? Or it's just a serious matter right now. You really want to kill yourself, because a lot of people say it in passing all the time, I wish I was dead right now, man. This is just a bunch of garbage. That's just a saying. So do they really mean it? And then if they do, here's the hard part. If they say, yeah, I really mean it. I'm done. I can't do this anymore. Okay, then do you have a plan? Yeah, I got a plan. What is it? Do you have the weapon? Yeah, I got them all. Then you call 911. You call 911 because you're not an interventionist. And you tell them, my friend's sitting here and wants to kill themselves. And they've got a plan, they got a weapon, they've got all this stuff. Okay? It's your job as a human being to save that person's life by phone call. That might be the hardest decision you ever make in your life. But let me ask you a question. And that person might be really pissed off at you, and their parents might be pissed off at you. I mean, I had a councilman in Palm Desert I had to call 911 on one time. I got my butt chewed by the cop. And I said, oh, well, right? But they might be pissed off. But let me ask you a question. If that person was to kill herself and you didn't make the phone call, how would you feel? Wouldn't it be better off to make the phone call and have that person pissed off at you, but at least you made an attempt to save their life? That's one way.
What does it take?
What does it take? I had a kid on the phone for an hour. 911 in one ear and him on the other. He ended up taking 50 square circle while I had him on the phone. Thank God I had 911. All he said, and he was on the phone. He says, I'm done. I said, what do you mean I'm done? I'm going to kill myself. Okay. You got a plan? Yeah. How you going to do it? A knife. I go, man. So then I called 911. It ended up being circle. He took 50 circle right before the police got there. So we have to have the courage with our friends. It's hard. Ask the hard conversation. Not only start the conversation, ask the hard conversation. Are you serious about this? I don't want you got
hard questions.
Yeah, you can do hard questions.
I think again, it's a fear. I think we're talking about fear, and I'm gonna get you, Vanny, to go and just get your. This is only on 2%, and it's gonna cut out in any second now. I think the fear of how we do life. I mean, even if we're talking about general things, and there are a lot of conversations in life that we don't do, and do it. Plug it on the other side, and we'll run it through this way. Bear with us one moment. There's a technical difficulty. Randy's only got 2% on his laptop, so we don't want to lose our connection. Is it on this side or the other side? Is it tight? Okay. I think we're going to drag it around. And is it the top one?
Yeah.
Okay. I guess that's it.
All right. Sorry about that.
So no, fear. I think the fear of having, one is fear of questions. I get that with my mom. I don't want to trigger her. So I'm not going to ask her that question. Right? I'm not going to, because if I trigger her, then it might get her on a thought process. Right. And right now she's not thinking about something, or she's not wanting to talk about something, but I'm not going to go there. But it takes I'm assessing it in multiple different ways. But if we're talking about, our fellow viewers who might or may or may not have, whether they have tools or not, but how can they create I guess it's a skill that you've developed over time. Yeah. But asking those questions, because is it fear? Because sometimes some people are not ready. Like, I know from me not asking my mom the questions and letting her just be in her world, with whichever way that might be. Right. But I know she's not going to take her life. I know that much, But again, like you said, that's me saying I know, but I don't really, right? I mean, I have to speak. That's the thing. But even, I don't. With my mother, for example, I won't ask her the same question because I know she just doesn't want to be rigorously honest. She doesn't know how to be rigorously honest, with herself or others. So in me asking the questions, it wouldn't serve the purpose in this case. And now on another case, like with your clients or with my clients, I know that when we're talking, we've already set the scene of asking questions. Right. And I've already said, I'm going to ask you some deep personal questions. Right. And I want you to be fully available and tell me your truth. And this is a safe place to do so. But that's something that we generate. But again, in someone's household, just for someone to have their life saved or have a deeper meaning or give them a meaning, or you can't give anybody unless someone's willing to take, but allow this conversation to happen. But how would you initiate conversation with it? Because in some cases somebody just wants to be heard. They don't even want to be questioned.
Yeah, and so here's what we want to do is this. So to initiate the conversations, here's some key factors that are really important. Because first of all, people most of their life aren't heard. That's just, they're listened to, but they're not heard. Their pain's not heard. Their feelings aren't heard. Their emotions aren't heard. So they've already got a wall up, and they've judged most of their life. So here, what we want to do as healers is we want to make sure when somebody comes to us, the very first most important thing is that they're going to walk in absolutely no judgment. That doesn't matter. We're not going to say, well, you need to do this. They're going to talk to us a little bit the first time they see us. And there's absolutely no judgment on our part whatsoever, because they've been judged. A lot of people have been judged all their life, and they've been told what they need to do or what they should do by well-intentioned people that are giving them pretty ill advice. And so judgment has got to go right out the window. That's something that's reserved for much later in the process, and it's not even judgment at that point. It's just critiquing them and giving them some insight. And then after the judgment, once they come in, then what we want to do is we need to validate those people, who they are as a human being, what they're going through in life, how they feel. Let them know that you have a right to feel this way. Yeah, and here again, the key to this, to any healer, is to put down everything, so maybe a notepad, because you're going to have to take notes, no phone, no computer, nothing. You're going to not only listen, but you're going to hear everything your client has to say. You want to hear what they're saying to you. You don't want to hear the words. You want to hear the emotion. You want to hear the feeling. You want to see it on their face. You want to see it in their body movement. And if you're filling with your computer or your phone, you can't do that. And if you take the notes, you're just kind of scribbling notes as they're talking to you. Okay, so you're going to meet them where they're at, no judgment. You're going to hear everything they have to say, and you're going to validate their feelings, their deepest emotional feelings that they haven't had. We will not validate their behaviors of the past, because most of them have not been really good, but their feelings, because they've never been validated. Right?
In that sense, so if we were just to twist that around and have it in our household, in our family lives, because we have a high expectations, we make assumptions, we have false promises, we create things that really are not there, or they are there and we don't see them. However you want to see it, and then there's a lot more to that. But just changing that, Randy's saying in a role of a client to yourself, but in the same sense as but you could do this in your home. In your home,
have a family meeting. It's again the ancestral thing we talked about. It doesn't have to continue. Well, that's how we learn. Well, okay. So how's that working for you?
Right.
Not very good. So you sit down, you have a family meeting, and you figure out how to do this as a family. When your husband when the spouses want to talk to each other, okay? When your son or your daughter, their boyfriend or girlfriend broke up with them, walk in the room with them. Sit down on the edge of the bed. Don't tell them to get over it. Don't tell them to grow up. Don't tell them there's plenty of fish in the ocean.
Or in my case, my mother said to me, "You're never going to find love again, so just stay celibate."
Sit down with your children and find out how they're feeling. Walk them through the process. Even if that hasn't happened to you, it's uncomfortable. Walk them, be there with them. Feel their pain, feel their emotion. Help them figure out life.
But don't take it on board.
But you're just going to help them. You're going to guide them along. They get bullied. Help them through the bullying. Become part of their life. You're their parent. Be involved with them. Hear them. Hear what they have to say. A lot of times they just want to be heard.
I think it's not just a child basis. I think it's even as a, like I was saying, referring to my client, right. The mother and daughter. These are adults. These are both of them are adults, and ultimately all they both of them want to be heard and both of them want to be loved, and that's what they're crying out for. That's what they're, that's what they're really wanting.
Well, that's what we do. That's what we're working on in our family. Kathy and I have really good conversations now,
Hey,
and we can sit there and if we're talking and we feel like we're being ignored, it's like, excuse me, I'm over here, and we don't get offended about it. So we can sit and talk and listen to each other. And even with our adult children, we love to have a conversation with them. And we're adults and we have things going on, but we're there for each other. And when somebody really needs to talk, all bets are off. All bets are off, and we'll sit and listen, and we'll talk.
But is that taking time? So again, coming back to we don't know where any of our viewers are from or what place they're in. And just to touch base with that takes time to create and generate, right? Yeah. And, would I, in that family meeting, I felt like, I remember when we used to have our family meetings, because I was the black sheep of the family, I would hate it. When we'd have a family meeting for my highest good, I would feel like I'm getting set up.
Well, see,
but that, it's a different, scenario. And I think, that was a whole trust thing. I'd rather have my dad just sat down with me and spoke to me directly rather than having this family conversation.
That's a good point.
So I think I think that everybody's dynamics are different, family dynamics are different, and choosing someone that you feel safe with, and it takes time to build that relationship. But I think immediately if we're in that scenario of feeling like someone's at risk of taking their life or taking someone else's life, it's being able to have the courage, even if, I remember working as a medical technician when I first came here to this country. And, one of my patients, I knew something was off. So I went to the head nurse and I said, something's off here. She didn't even see it. I saw signs. So she didn't see signs, or she saw something, but she was like, it's okay. And she didn't follow through the procedure because of the paramedics complaining that we were calling and things weren't as serious as they wanted it to be. So we got told off, right? As a company, we got told off, and she kind of hung fired. Something happened, right? There was consequence to pay, for that. And I just think that in these kind of scenarios, it's the same thing. If you doubt or you figure or you think, okay, something's going to happen or something's off, follow your instinct. I think it's going and even if you feel like you're going to look stupid, I guess that's the best language to use. Or you feel like, okay, you might not be believed or whatever, but I think follow through with how you feel and think. And there's the suicide hotline. I know there's a depression association for
National Association of Mental Illness.
Thank you, mental illness. So there are a lot of services, and I think bringing them into your repertoire and putting them in your file, the telephone numbers, the contact details. So if you have to find, refer somebody, or if you have to reach out to somebody, there is something. And then I think for yourself, it's setting the scene. I think looking at within yourself. I think we all have to do our self work to be able to help others outside of us. And one of the things that I think if you look at yourself, and even when you first started going to Betty Ford and you were telling the story about being here, you showed up and you felt like you were not judged, but ultimately if you look at yourself, I mean, I look at myself and I go, I'm the most judgmental person I had been on myself. I judged everything about myself and around others, and I didn't realize it until I was doing the work that I was doing. And even the validation, I wasn't validating myself. Everything that happened was like, it was my fault. That's how I experienced life. It was my fault. They didn't have any part. They did what they did, but I brought it on myself. And that was those certain words that were used in my family, in my whole household, that basically enforce that it was my fault, for being who I was. So I think, again, it comes to that, going back to yourself, but I think ultimately as an outsider, if somebody doesn't have that awareness about themselves, about what they're doing, what they expect of themselves, but then it's at the outsider, how can we help as an outsider? How can we make a difference as an outsider for those around us?
Well, we just got to meet them where they're at. I mean, it's like, remember that these victims are, I hate the word victims, people that are struggling with depression or suicidal thoughts or trauma, or past trauma experiences, they got their defenses up, they got their walls up. And me and Dipika talk about this all the time. I'm a person, I feed off a person's energy, and if you got bad energy, I know right away. And so when people come to you, come to us, we want to meet them in a very loving way, because they're gonna have their guard up, and they're gonna be looking for a flaw in this, and realize that it's gonna take time for people to warm up to you. But here's the most important thing: don't tell people what they need to do, because you don't know what they need to do, because you're not them. You might have gone through depression, anxiety, bipolar. You might have suffered child abuse, trauma, whatever those things are. It's very well possible that you all have suffered or struggled with all that, which is highly likely. What worked for you, you know what you need to do for you. But I don't know what Dipika needs to do for herself. So, okay, I feel it's very wrong when you go up to tell somebody, well, you need to do this and you need to do that. How about just saying, wow, what can I do to help you? Just know that, you know what, I went through that, and I had my own struggles, but I'm over it right now. But if you want, we can sit down and talk about that later. But right now, I'm just know that I'm here for you. If you need somebody to talk to, I'm here to talk to you. What can I do for you? Don't tell them what they need to do, because a lot of people have been told what they needed to do all their lives, and that's why they got walls up, because what they've been told they needed to do hasn't worked. Okay? I never tell anybody what they need to do. I don't know them. I don't know who they are. I don't know what their needs and desires are. I learned that in recovery. I don't tell them what to do. Those who know me at Celebrate Recovery, just go talk to the people over there. I just let them walk in. I just lead them on a path of love and kindness, and let them find their own way. And I'm here to support them and catch them if they start falling. And I think that's what we need. I think that the human race, that's exactly. It doesn't have to be Celebrate Recovery. It doesn't have to be church. It can be everyday life. As a human race, we just need to meet people where they're at.
And not judge them for what they're doing. Yeah, absolutely. I think coming absolutely. Yeah. I that fear again. Overcoming that fear. Because I think right. On somebody who might not have experienced that. The fear is, if they see someone in a dark spot,
right.
Their fear is, how are they going to behave towards me? Am I at risk? Am I at there is that. I mean, I'm looking at that in my mom's case. Again, I can my wonderful family. I love them, but I think fear. So I don't want to get involved in that, because I don't know the repercussion. Mm. So.
Well, because they don't know how to do it, and that's a good point. If Dipika comes to me with a certain situation, it's like, what? I don't know, and so at that point, it's like, Dipika, man, that must really hurt. I can understand that, and I see where your pain is coming from, but I don't know how to help you with this one, and it's like way over my head right now. I can tell you that right now, and I don't want to tell you any ill information. So just know that I'll sit here and I'll listen to you. There's nothing I can say that's going to really help you, other than just meet you with open arms and love. That's all I can do. That's, to me, more people need to do that rather than trying to fix something. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So,
Looking out of time here.
Yeah.
So, just a couple of things, just to recap. Just wanted to say, be non-judgmental. Be validating. Let them know it's okay to feel what they feel. It's okay to experience what they experience.
The words, just get over it. Don't come out of your mouth.
Give them space. If it sounds like complaining, let them complain. It's okay. Just because you're a non-complainer, it's all good, right? But if that's where they're at, allow them to do what they need to do. Be rigorously honest. I think this is a really hard one in terms of, people will go, okay, well, I just told it straight as it is, up as it is, but then that's not right. So I'm saying rigorously honest, be rigorously honest with yourself. Mm-hmm. Whether it's yourself that's giving the support, and trust your intuition. If you feel that this is not the right place to give them that, then trust it. in terms of so-called, how should we call it, advice or guidance. Right. Because in that being rigorously honest, the only thing that you could be rigorously honest with is just allowing them to speak to you, giving that space to the individual to be able to be honest and tell you. And hey, if it's a loved one, they might end up saying something that's really painful. But remember, it's not about you. It's not about you. And I know it's easier said than done, but it's not about you. And then I think, when it's like sharing a little bit at a time. Like I remember when I used to be just like blatant, and it's like I had no time lapse. No time to like just say as it is. No, like give it a little bit of time, one step at a time. Meet them where they're at, and I think fearlessness. Be aware of where your fears are. If you're speaking to somebody, like pick up on your senses. Like pick up. Are you fearful of what they're telling you, or are you projecting something? Because they're doing whatever they're doing. But remember, we're all sensitive. We're all energy. So something we're picking up either way, and just being aware of that. Because ultimately, if you can be from love, that's what will just fill that room or that space between you and that person. Unless you have anything else, Randy.
Well, I just want to say that hi to Melody. She was in my life coach class.
Hey,
Melody. Yeah,
hi, Melody.
We've become active listeners, and we're big on that. Be listeners, not only listen but hear what people are saying. So that's really important for everybody. More people did that. Everybody's in such a hurry to do things anymore. They hear about half of what you're going to say, and they already got an answer for you. It's inaccurate. So no, it's just you guys just know that you're all loved, and that everybody has their own quirks and their own defects, and more people in your circle probably deal with mental illness than you think. So be kind to everybody, and remember that's all we need to do. A lot of times we're only in a person's life for a moment, so leave that loving impression on them. Even
you can change them within the moment.
You can change them right there. Your answer to a person in distress is going to do one or two things. It's either going to push them over the edge to where they don't come back, or it's going to start them on the road to recovery. Remember that. Words are very powerful. When somebody comes to you, how many times they've come to you before and got pushed away, got judged, and got the walls built up. So love everybody you come in contact with.
And then I also wanted to say, if you found this information useful and you would like to share it amongst your community, please click share and share this video with others. Watch us also on our YouTube channel, which will be Love Your Life Story, and keep following us. Aloha. Randy's going to be in Maui next week.
Away from the volcano, so I'll be safe.
And so we're not going to be doing a call next week, correct?
No.
So we could do a multiple way thing. You on the beach.
No, you'll get mad at me.
I wouldn't. Would any of you guys get mad at him? I wouldn't. We'd all be having fun.
Yeah. Maybe we can have a luau.
We'd be living vicariously through Randy.
Well, you know? We'll have a luau or something.
Yeah, that'd be all fun.
You can set up the kitchen here in a luau.
Oh, could you imagine that?
Yeah, I could.
Some roast.
Pig roast, yeah. Yeah. But yeah, no. If something changes, we'll let you know. But we likely won't be doing the live feed next week. It'll be after the week.
So week after. So see you in 2 weeks' time. We really appreciate your love and your support. Thank you for watching us. And remember, like you said,
if nobody tells you they love you today, Randy does.
And Dipika does.
Have a blessed weekend, guys. Thanks for joining us.
Take care. Bye-bye. Okay, we gotta do something better with this one.